New York City, 1977. A summer so stifling, even the streets seemed to sweat. But it wasn't just the heat that suffocated the city. It was fear. A fear born from bloodshed, from an unseen hand that struck down the innocent without warning. A quiet neighborhood. The camera pans across a seemingly peaceful Bronx neighborhood at dusk. The sun dips low, casting long shadows. Dogs bark in the distance. A young couple, Maria and Tony, walk hand in hand, unaware of the darkness that stalks them. Maria, laughing. "Tony, you're such a scaredy cat. It's just a dog barking." Tony, smiling but uneasy. "Yeah, I know. It's just this whole Son of Sam thing. It's messing with my head. They say he's still out there, you know." Suddenly, the barking intensifies. The couple stops. They exchange nervous glances, and Maria clutches Tony's arm tighter. Maria, whispering, "Let's just get home, okay?" As they quicken their pace, the camera shifts to a darkened alley. A figure emerges, cloaked in shadows. David Berkowitz. His eyes gleam with a madness that betrays his calm demeanor. In his hand he grips a .44 caliber bulldog revolver. David, muttering to himself, "Sam, I hear you. The time is near." The couple's laughter echoes faintly as they disappear around a corner. David steps into the light, revealing a twisted smile. David, calmly to himself, "They'll never see it coming, Sam. They never do." The scene fades as a gunshot rings out, shattering the night's fragile peace. The police station. Inside a bustling police station, Detective Frank Kaplan slams a map of New York City onto his desk, covered in red dots, each one a crime scene. His partner, Detective Lucy Rivera, stands beside him, her face grim. Detective Kaplan, frustrated. "Another one, Lucy. That makes 6. 6 dead, and we're no closer to finding this lunatic." Detective Rivera, calm but determined. "He's toying with us, Frank. He knows we're chasing shadows." Kaplan runs a hand through his hair, stress etched into his features. Detective Kaplan. "The letters, they're just taunts." "Son of Sam," he calls himself. "But who the hell is Sam?" Rivera stares at the map, her eyes narrowing on a particular neighborhood. Detective Rivera. "Maybe it's not a who. Maybe it's a what. What if Sam is someone he believes is real? The dark secret." Flashback to David's cluttered apartment. He sits at a desk, scribbling furiously on a piece of paper, one of the infamous letters to the police. Behind him, a dog sits on the couch, staring intently at him. David, speaking to the dog, "Sam, I can't ignore you anymore. They don't understand. They don't hear you like I do." The dog, eyes glowing eerily, growls lowly as if in response. David shudders, clutching his head. David, pleading, "Please, please, not again. I can't do it. I don't want to." The dog's growl deepens, and David's expression hardens, his hand tightening around the revolver on the desk. David, voice trembling but resolute, "Yes, Sam, I'll obey. Just one more time. One more, and then you'll let me go, won't you?" The dog's growl fades, and the room falls silent, save for the ticking of a clock. David's eyes glaze over, and he slowly rises, the gun in his hand. As he leaves the apartment, the dog watches him go, its eyes following his every move. The hunt! Back in the police station, Kaplan and Rivera are briefing their team. Detective Kaplan. "This is it. We've got a lead on his location, an apartment in the Bronx. We will move in tonight." The camera shifts to a SWAT team gearing up, tension thick in the air. As they prepare to leave, Kaplan glances at Rivera. Detective Kaplan, serious. "If we don't get him tonight, more blood will be on our hands." Detective Rivera, nodding. "We'll get him, Frank. We have to." The capture. Night falls and the SWAT team surrounds David's apartment building. Inside, David sits alone, the revolver in his lap, mumbling to himself. David, desperate. "Sam, why are you silent now? What do you want me to do?" He suddenly freezes, hearing footsteps outside his door. His eyes dart to the gun, then to the window. Outside, Kaplan signals the team to move in. Rivera readies her weapon, her heart pounding. Detective Rivera, whispering, "This is it. Please, God, let this be it." They break down the door, rushing into the room. David doesn't resist. He simply smiles as they cuff him, his eyes distant, as if seeing something or someone that isn't there. David, softly to himself, "It's over, Sam. It's finally over." The scene fades as the camera zooms out, showing David being led away in handcuffs, his head bowed. The dog's growl echoes faintly even as the screen goes dark. Epilogue. The story concludes with a montage of newspaper headlines showing David Berkowitz's arrest, trial, and eventual conviction. His claim of being driven by a demon named Sam becomes a chilling footnote in the history of New York's most notorious crimes. But even behind bars, David's transformation from the son of Sam to the son of hope leaves an unsettling question in the minds of those who remember his reign of terror. Can a man truly be freed from the darkness within, or is it merely sleeping, waiting for its time to awaken once more? August 10th, 1977. New York City is on edge, every corner of the city gripped by fear and anxiety. But tonight the tide is about to turn. The NYPD's largest manhunt is closing in on its target, David Berkowitz, the son of Sam. The apartment stakeout. Outside Berkowitz's shabby apartment in Yonkers, the street is swarming with unmarked police cars. Detectives Frank Kaplan and Lucy Rivera sit in their car, tension simmering in the air. Detective Kaplan, checking his watch. It's time. We've waited long enough. We go in quietly and fast. No room for error. Detective Rivera, nodding, her eyes sharp. Let's end this nightmare, Frank. They move towards the building, flanked by SWAT members. The night is still, but every sound feels amplified. The crunch of gravel, the faint hum of distant traffic, the rustle of wind. Kaplan knocks on the door, his heart pounding. Detective Kaplan, loudly. David Berkowitz, NYPD, open up! There's a long, dreadful pause. From inside, the faint creak of a floorboard can be heard. Then the door opens, revealing Berkowitz standing calmly, a chilling smile on his face. David, softly. Well, you got me, took you long enough. The tension evaporates in an instant. The detectives move swiftly, pinning Berkowitz against the wall and cuffing him. He doesn't resist. He simply continues to smile, his eyes vacant and far away, as though he's in a world of his own. Detective Rivera, confused, to Kaplan. Why isn't he fighting? He's been taunting us for months. Detective Kaplan, tightening the cuffs. Maybe he's tired of running, or maybe the game's just over. As they lead Berkowitz down the stairs, neighbors peer through windows and gather at doorways, a mixture of relief and horror on their faces. Berkowitz keeps his head down, muttering incoherently under his breath. David, whispering to himself, Sam told me it would end this way, but I did what I had to do. I did it for you, Sam. The interrogation room. In the dimly lit interrogation room, Berkowitz sits at a metal table, hands cuffed, eyes unfocused. Kaplan and Rivera stand on the other side, trying to make sense of the man before them. Detective Kaplan, leaning in. Why, David? Why did you do it? Berkowitz looks up, his expression shifting from blank to disturbingly animated. David, smiling. I didn't do it, Sam did. He used me. I was just his instrument. Rivera shudders, feeling the weight of his words. Kaplan, unfazed, presses on. Detective Kaplan, sternly. There is no Sam, David. It's just you. You pulled the trigger. You killed those people. David, suddenly angry, slamming his hands on the table. You don't know anything. You don't know what it's like to have someone inside your head, whispering, screaming, I had no choice. His outburst echoes in the small room, and for a moment the detectives are silent, staring at the man who had once brought a city to its knees. The courtroom. Months later, the courtroom is packed with journalists, victims' families, and onlookers. The atmosphere is electric, charged with anticipation and a thirst for justice. Berkowitz stands before the judge, unflinching as the charges are read. Judge, reading aloud. David Berkowitz, you are charged with 6 counts of murder in the first degree and 7 counts of attempted murder. How do you plead? Berkowitz glances at the audience, his eyes briefly meeting those of a grieving mother clutching a faded photograph of her daughter. For a moment, something like regret flickers across his face. Then it's gone. David, calmly. Guilty. Guilty on all counts. A gasp ripples through the courtroom. The judge, maintaining his composure, proceeds with the sentencing. Judge, you are hereby sentenced to 6 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. You will spend the rest of your life in prison, Mr. Berkowitz. Berkowitz nods, his expression serene, as if he's made peace with his fate. As he's led away, the courtroom erupts, some in tears, others in applause. Kaplan and Rivera watch from the back, their mission complete. Detective Rivera, softly. It's over, Frank. He can't hurt anyone anymore. Detective Kaplan, nodding. Yeah, but the scars he left, those never heal. The camera follows Berkowitz as he disappears behind the heavy metal doors of the courthouse, his footsteps echoing like a distant drumbeat. The scene fades to black, leaving the audience with the unsettling truth that sometimes evil has no explanation, no justification, only the chilling reality of what it leaves behind. Psychological profile. The courtroom is packed with reporters, spectators, and experts, all drawn to the spectacle of the Son of Sam trial. On the witness stand, a psychiatrist, Dr. Thompson, faces the jury, adjusting his glasses as he prepares to deliver his assessment of David Berkowitz's mental state. The psychiatrist's testimony. Dr. Thompson sits confidently on the stand, shuffling through his notes. Across the room, Berkowitz sits with an eerie calm, seemingly unfazed by the proceedings. His lawyer, Mr. Carlson, leans in, whispering something in his ear, but Berkowitz's eyes remain fixed on the psychiatrist. Prosecutor, Dr. Thompson, can you please explain your findings regarding Mr. Berkowitz's psychological condition? Dr. Thompson, certainly. After numerous evaluations, I diagnosed Mr. Berkowitz as suffering from paranoid schizophrenia. His behavior, as described by the police and his own admissions, includes auditory hallucinations, specifically, hearing commands from a being he referred to as Sam. These hallucinations appear to have played a significant role in his actions. The jury murmurs, casting glances at Berkowitz, who sits with an unsettling smirk on his face. Prosecutor. Dr. Thompson, would you say Mr. Berkowitz understood the nature of his crimes? Dr. Thompson. While he understood the physical act of pulling the trigger, his delusional state led him to believe he was fulfilling a mission dictated by a demonic presence. This belief significantly impaired his judgment and understanding of the morality of his actions. Defense lawyer, Carlson. Objection, Your Honor. Dr. Thompson is speculating on my client's moral compass. I would like to remind the court that not all experts agree on this diagnosis. Judge. Sustained. Dr. Thompson, please stick to your clinical findings. Dr. Thompson nodding. Of course. I can confirm that Mr. Berkowitz exhibits symptoms of paranoid schizophrenia, including delusions of grandeur and persecution. However, it's important to note that there is disagreement among the psychiatric community regarding the severity of his condition. Some argue his behaviors could be attributed to a severe personality disorder rather than a full psychotic break. The courtroom buzzes with tension as the testimony continues. Dr. Thompson looks directly at Berkowitz, whose expression remains disturbingly serene. Private interview with Berkowitz. In a small, dimly lit room at the prison, Dr. Thompson sits across from Berkowitz. The atmosphere is heavy, the air thick with an unspoken menace. Berkowitz fidgets with his hands, occasionally glancing at the ceiling as if listening for a voice only he can hear. Dr. Thompson. David, I'd like to understand more about Sam. Can you tell me about him? Berkowitz leans in, eyes wide, his voice a whisper that cuts through the silence like a knife. David, Sam is everything. He's the darkness, the voice that tells me what to do. You think it was me out there? No, it was Sam. I was just a vessel. Dr. Thompson, gently probing. You mentioned once that you were working for Satan. Do you believe that now? Berkowitz chuckles, a low, unsettling sound that echoes in the small room. David, Satan, Sam, they're all the same, Doc. They've got a hold on people. They had a hold on me. When I pulled that trigger, I felt powerful, invincible, like I was doing something bigger than myself, something necessary. Dr. Thompson watches Berkowitz closely, noting the shifts in his demeanor, from detached calm to sudden bursts of intensity, each change underscored by his fragile grip on reality. Dr. Thompson, David, do you feel any remorse for what you did? Berkowitz's smile fades, replaced by a cold, calculating stare. David, remorse? Doc, you still don't get it. It wasn't about feeling, it was about duty. I had a job to do and I did it. Sam made sure of that. The room falls silent as Dr. Thompson makes his final notes, the weight of Berkowitz's words lingering like a specter. The interview ends, but the chilling certainty remains. Berkowitz isn't just a man who heard voices. He's a man who embraced them, letting them fuel a spree of violence that would haunt New York City forever. Reflections in the courtroom. Back in the courtroom, Dr. Thompson takes his seat among the audience. The defense and prosecution deliver their closing arguments, painting contrasting pictures of Berkowitz, one as a madman lost in his delusions, the other as a manipulative killer who craved the infamy his crimes brought him. The camera focuses on Berkowitz, who sits quietly, the din of the courtroom fading into a low hum. For a brief moment, he turns his head, looking directly into the camera, his expression inscrutable. David, whispering to himself, "They'll never understand, Sam. They'll never really see." As the judge prepares to deliver the sentence, Berkowitz's image blurs, the scene fading to black with the echo of his voice, a chilling reminder of a mind ensnared by darkness and the legacy of fear it left behind. Spiritual transformation. It's 1987. The imposing walls of Attica Correctional Facility stand tall, cloaked in shadow and despair. Inside, David Berkowitz, once the notorious son of Sam, now sits in a small, dimly lit prison cell. The barred window lets in a sliver of moonlight, casting long, eerie shadows. Alone with his thoughts, Berkowitz grapples with a darkness that never seems to leave him. But tonight something shifts, the awakening. Berkowitz kneels on the cold concrete floor of his cell, an old Bible clutched in his trembling hands. The pages are worn and tattered, as if they've been handled 1,000 times over. He flips through the pages, his eyes searching desperately for solace, his breath ragged and uneven. The voices once his constant tormentors are quieter now, but the weight of his past sins still presses heavily on him. David, whispering to himself, "I am lost. I am nothing. God, if you're real, if you're there, please help me. I can't bear this anymore." He presses his forehead to the ground, tears spilling freely, mixing with the dirt and grime of his cell. For the first time in years, Berkowitz feels truly alone. Not the solitude of confinement, but the deep, soul-crushing isolation of a man severed from any sense of purpose or peace. Suddenly, there's a faint rustling, almost imperceptible. Berkowitz raises his head, startled, his eyes darting to the Bible. The pages turn slowly, as if guided by an invisible hand, stopping at Psalm 51, a prayer of repentance. David, reading aloud, his voice breaking, "Have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love, according to your great compassion, blot out my transgressions." As he reads, a warmth floods the cell, growing from the faintest flicker to an encompassing glow. Berkowitz gasps, feeling something stir deep within, a light pushing back against the darkness that had consumed him for so long. David, weeping, "Forgive me, forgive me." He collapses, sobbing, the Bible still clutched tightly. For the first time since his arrest, he feels the crushing weight of his sins begin to lift. The transformation isn't immediate, but the seed is planted, a glimmer of hope in a sea of despair. The prison chapel. Weeks pass, and Berkowitz starts attending Bible studies in the prison chapel. It's a humble space, filled with worn pews and faded religious icons, but to him it feels like a sanctuary. Berkowitz, now with a slight but genuine smile, listens intently as Chaplain Wilson speaks to a small group of inmates. Chaplain Wilson, kindly with conviction. "No one is beyond redemption. God's love is for everyone, no matter their past. If you seek him with an open heart, he will guide you." Berkowitz nods, feeling the words resonate deeply. He looks around at the other inmates, seeing in their eyes the same yearning, the same brokenness that once defined him. He stands up, nervously glancing at the chaplain. "David, may I share something?" The chaplain nods, and the other inmates turn their attention to Berkowitz. He takes a deep breath, the weight of his past pressing on his shoulders. But there's also a newfound strength, a resolve he hadn't known before. David, voice shaking but strong, I was once known as the son of Sam. I did terrible things I can't ever undo. I hurt people. I destroyed lives. But here, in this place, I found something I never thought I'd feel again. Hope." The room is silent, every eye on Berkowitz as he continues. "David, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I believe God saved me, not from the punishment I earned, but from the darkness inside me. I've been given a second chance, not to be free, but to make a difference, even if it's just behind these walls. I want to help others, to show them that no matter how far gone you think you are, there's always a way back." He pauses, tears welling up in his eyes, but his voice remains steady. "David, I am no longer the son of Sam. I am the son of hope. And if I can change, maybe others can too." The room is filled with a palpable sense of awe, a quiet understanding that something profound has occurred. The inmates, many of whom had once feared Berkowitz, now see him in a different light, not as a monster, but as a man seeking redemption, a new purpose. Years later, Berkowitz sits at a small desk in his cell, writing letters of encouragement to other inmates and to those on the outside who reach out to him. His cell, once a place of torment, now resembles a humble sanctuary. Photographs of people he's helped, letters of gratitude, and prayer cards cover the walls. The door to his cell opens, and Chaplain Wilson steps in, a smile on his face. Chaplain Wilson. David, there's someone here to see you. Another inmate struggling, asking for your guidance. Berkowitz looks up, a gentle smile spreading across his face. He rises, the Bible in hand, ready to meet the new arrival. He walks through the corridor, his steps purposeful, his gaze forward. He's no longer haunted by the demons of his past. He's found a new mission, to bring light into the lives of those still lost in darkness. As he reaches the chapel, Berkowitz pauses, looking up at the simple cross hanging above the door. He touches the Bible to his chest, whispers a silent prayer, and steps inside, ready to share the hope that saved him.